I truly believe, y'all, I was the first person to stand up and say, hallelujah. I've been talking for 25 years, haven't I, Terry, about we need to become energy independent. Some of our young people are going overseas because we're not. Anyone who doesn't acknowledge that is not acknowledging reality. Let's become energy independent. So the president says, I'm all of the above, full steam ahead. Scott Rigell from Virginia, too, a Republican. I don't think I can contain myself. I leapt up. But he votes against, he does not support the Keystone Pipeline that was clearly estimated to, I saw numbers between 20 and 100,000 jobs. Hard to understand that. And then, off the coast of Virginia, there's a full moratorium. Absolute, through Secretary Salazar, a full moratorium on coastal Virginia energy. Now, in my view, the logic flow for me is this. A complete moratorium on Virginia coastal energy is a moratorium on much-needed jobs. 18,000 jobs is the estimate, some of which would surely go into our inner cities. And we can make sure of that. Some of it, these jobs would generate the tax revenues that we need for our teachers to pay them better and our first responders. And think about this. I ran on the platform of coastal energy, of opening this up in an environmentally responsible way. The House of Delegates here in Virginia voted in favor of it. The Virginia Senate voted in favor of it. Governor McDonnell ran on it. So I see it as, look, you got the local wisdom, the local folks in Virginia, not every person, I know that, but virtually every representative, elected official, virtually, is saying we want coastal energy. And there's folks up in Washington that say, no, we know a bit better. I don't think that's good. And so I can disagree with the president on that matter. I'm introducing legislation, and Senators Warner and Webb have already introduced legislation just like that, very similar to it in the Senate. So hopefully we'll get that through Congress and over to the president. Say, Mr. President, please look at this again. We want to go back to work in Virginia, and don't unnecessarily put up any roadblocks to that, so that we can free up the American entrepreneur. The greatest job-producing engine the world's ever known. It's American entrepreneur. Well, I know if my wife was right here, she'd probably be going, stop right here. Stop and maybe stop talking, because I've learned that the question and answer time is really the best. But I wanted to share a few things with you there about how I'm serving the district, and I hope it triggers some thought, because I'm convinced that there's common ground. I'm not a big fan of the word compromise. Maybe it applies, and I might have to concede that. But I am a huge fan of the expression common ground. I am convinced it's out there, and that we as Americans, Republican, Independent, Democrat, and the folks who haven't given it much thought, that there's such overlap between all of us that we can find and move forward. There's not a Democrat that I know of that wants us to go bankrupt as a country. There's not a Republican that I know of that wants us to go bankrupt as a country. But we are borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar. And look, you don't have to be a finance major to know there's not a country, a family, a business that can borrow 40 cents out of the dollar into perpetuity and be all right. There is a day of reckoning. America, too, is subject to the universal laws of finance. So we need to get this right and find it. And I'll leave you with this little example. It's like, I think it was like two circles. And if you start moving these two circles together, what happens in geometry, these two circles start to overlap. And I think of that as common ground. And we need to diligently seek common ground. When we find it, we need to celebrate it. And when we find it and celebrate it, we need to have elected officials who are strong enough and bold enough to vote for it. And with that, I'll thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of the Gloucester Institute. And may God bless each and every one of you in your journey. Thank you. I'd love to, yes, sir. Welcome.
Taking questions?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dr. John Hatcher, recent graduate of Regional University School of Education. You talked about stability. And civility is kind of a respect, a basic respect, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yes.
And in a sense of fairness. When we talk about or think about the tax code, it seems to me respect and fairness would be that everyone, regardless of what their income is, would pay the same percent of tax. Could you speak to that?
Sure. In fact, I came from today. I was down at Virginia Beach Town Center, and there was the Tea Party rally. And you know, I just go across our district, and I brought to that rally this tax code. I don't have it with me. I could have brought it in. It's literally this thick, and the print is microscopic. And I just had Esmel just read from it. And it's just an incredibly complex document. I really believe that it's principally a collection of lobbyist-inspired, lobbyist-written loopholes. And both parties, I trust, agree that we've got to have major tax reform. We are number one in the world, not in some key areas, but we're number one in the highest corporate tax rate. Our country, this isn't my opinion, this is just a matter of fact, it has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. I do think that the complete elimination of tax loopholes and credits and just moving toward a very simplified system would make sense, but it's got to be done. You can't just chop out at just one individual tax element at a time. I think it's got to be very comprehensive, and I'm looking for that, and I'd support it. And let me also offer you a chance to ask a follow-up question, because tax code is such a broad issue. Is there anything? I'd be happy to answer a question very specifically if
I
like.
guess I can narrow it by asking, aside from the corporate tax,
Okay.
Just the individual tax, the personal tax,
Yes.
that individuals would pay. We understand the corporate.
Yeah. Okay. Let's set that aside for a moment.
Yeah.
Set corporate aside.
The personal individual tax that each
Yes.
American citizen would pay.
Yes. Do you think it ought to be the same rate?
I'm just thinking in terms of civility, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Respect and fairness.
Okay.
It seems that everyone should pay the same.
I'm going to interrupt here and make
okay.
a point of personal privilege.
Always.
Today is about the students,
Oh, okay.
and we want to
All
focus
right.
on them.
Listen, great question. I'll follow up with you afterwards.
And you all can follow
How's
up
that?
afterwards and have
Thank
a
you.
debate on tax policy, because I care about
Just
my
got a little
kids.
excited.
No, I understand.
I care about my kids. And
Yes.
if there's anything, a question
Yes.
from the students about what it's like being and expressing your ideas, or
Sure. Anything about, yes, ma'am.
So, we talk about how you think civility is important
Yes.
and how it's kind of absent. So how do you go about, I guess, reigniting civility when it starts to become a little lost in your discussions with people within your party, within the other party, independents, etc.?
Well, I have spoken with our senior leadership about some of the very issues that I've addressed today. I've told them that I think the use of Obamacare is just bad. My wife Terry and I have been all across this district. We worship in African American churches, not every weekend, but often. And listen, I talk about things as they are, y'all. As Mel can tell you, I get to the Republican City Committee meeting or our breakfast on Saturday morning, and sometimes I just look around. It stuns people. They aren't looking at their iPads anymore or their iPhones anymore, because I said, look around. It's a bunch of, more often than not, it's a bunch of white people looking at, in the room. All of a sudden, people go, "Oh my gosh, he just said it." I deal with reality. Look, you sent a businessman up there, and I think about this, and I think about where our country is changing demographically. I'm not worried about a person's skin pigment. I didn't have anything to do with that. What I want to know is what is a person's core values? Do they love liberty? Do they love a country? Do they want a country free of discrimination? Do they want it where the full fabric of our community is crossing the finish line? I'm one Republican who would respectfully not concede the moral high ground to my friends who are Democrats. I really think the best thing we can do is to get offshore energy going here in Virginia to create 18,000 jobs. You could argue that's a moral matter. And think about the lives changed with each person employed. So I speak boldly to my leadership on this matter, and I speak boldly to my own party locally on this matter, and I think we're having some success. We have spirited civil debates, and I expect that will continue through this election cycle. Yes, Terry?
In some of our home meetings, we have...
Oh, right. Oh, this is my wife, Terry. She just noted that, see, as a business person, I really am hardwired. You throw out a problem, I'm going to start giving solutions. And I'm thinking, wait, part of the problem in Washington is that you hardly get to know your Republican colleagues. You have to be very deliberate about reaching out to the other side and seeing someone as a person and not as a caricature. And so we're using the place that we have up there as and I think of it as really healing our country. And so Esmel knows more people in Washington than I do. There's a little bit of truth in that. I see him going down the hallway and saying, "Hello, Congressman." He knows all these folks. And so he's helping us not only on one occasion but in others to bring people over to our home. And I reached out to my friend Hanson Clark. He serves with me on 2 committees. He's a Democrat. And so he comes over to our home and we just talk, and you really find we have more in common. And we had African American staffers. And Esmel, you've got a big voice. Just stand up if you would.
Esmel, why do you work for this guy? Tell them.
Why do I work for him?
Yeah, why?
Oh, here, sir.
I yield to the gentleman from Virginia. Be seated.
Well, just like the Congressman said, he didn't expect to be working Capitol Hill. It wasn't on his bucket list. It definitely wasn't on mine. About 7 or 8 years ago, I had the privilege and honor to meet his son, Justice Rigell, at a church camp called Young Life. And the first thing Justice said to me was, "You need to meet my dad." And I said, "Okay, I'll meet your dad." And came home and spent a lot of time with their family. Just over time, I got to know the Congressman and his wife, Terry, and their family. And I just appreciate how genuine they are. Mrs. K was saying earlier that he not only gives his time, but his money. And he spends his time with each and every individual as if they were the President of the United States. He treats every single person evenly. And he'll take time to listen to a Democrat. He'll take time to listen to any person, to hear their thoughts, and always find where the facts are, and to let the facts lead him in the future. So I can just appreciate an individual who doesn't care about the leadership in his party, who can vote against his party in any manner, to rely on the facts and to move things forward for his country.
You're here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Wow. He gets more applause than I do. That's fine. Yes, please.
Since he said that, I just want to make sure that, in case anyone's interested in internships.
Oh yes, we love people to come and be part of what we're doing. And it was a really interesting journey because, like most young people, and when Esmel started out in this process, I've learned a ton in the last 2.5 years. Esmel's learned a lot, and I always encourage Esmel. I said, Esmel, don't just take what I'm sharing with you as gospel. Test it against your own observations, and just look. But I want to give you one example here of why I feel like I not only can but must be bold on this matter. It's like when I'm an automobile dealer, y'all. Okay, so let's say you have 3 or 4, even 10 dealerships or whatever you have. Let's say there's a dealership over here, and help me with your name. Sonia. And let's just say Sonia's doing a great job. Her store's profitable, customer satisfaction's great, everything's wonderful. Is the operator, I'll say, Sonia, great job. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at your store. Congratulations. I'm sorry, but you're not running a very good store. Help me with your name. Kelsey, okay. Kelsey, maybe her customer satisfaction scores are not good. Her market penetration scores are not good. Profitability is not good. And this probably means I got to wrap up. Okay, now the thing is this. The leader who is not meeting expectations or standards you really do forfeit your right to tell me not to get in your business. I will get in your business if you're not getting the performance. Now, let's apply that to Congress with a 9% approval rating, taking my family, your family, every American from Key West to Anchorage, Alaska, over the fiscal cliff. I don't care what your position is, what your title is, how long you've been in Congress. They've essentially forfeited their right to tell me what can and can't be done. So, it's not enough for me just to say, this isn't working. I have to bring solutions, what I call the wisdom of the district. And so that's why I'm so intent and really unapologetic about civility, where do the facts lead us, and not questioning the motives of those with whom we disagree. It's not the only way to approach the problem. It's just how I've been impressed to approach the problem. The journey's not over. I seek re-election. That'll be interesting. I think you'll watch it, I trust, with some great interest, because you've met us today. But listen, pray for our country, and I share this all across the 2nd District. Pray for our country, pray for the President, pray for the leader of the Senate, and also pray for the Speaker of the House, and hold those in authority accountable, get informed on the issues, get behind a candidate you believe, and hold him or her accountable. That's the American way. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman Rigell. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Next.